Hi everyone. I'm Justin Martin, 34, and was married to Karen Martin Clements, 30, for 4 years. This is the tale of how I came to be hiding in plain sight. I met Karen Clements at a Saturday morning office party that I couldn't avoid. It was to introduce the new employees and to announce promotions. It was a celebration party. I was one of the people being given a promotion. My promotion was to a senior broker's chair at the brokerage firm where I work. My personal portfolio was ballooning and I was well on the way to my first million and a partnership at 27. My clients were doing very well also. Karen was on the arm of John Palmer, my chief competition for the next partnership. He was a major esquisser and very risk-averse, so while he seldom had big losses, his upside gains were only about 30% of what I did for my clients. As a consequence, my client list was growing and his was shrinking. He was and is an asshole that lets no slight to himself go unpunished. I disliked the jerk from the first day he joined the firm. His first statement after he was introduced for his promotion from associate to broker. "Good morning, people. I'm going to be the next partner within the next 2 years. I'm also going to become the top producer here, so watch out." Well, that statement went over as if he had shit on the floor in front of the office door. One of the partners walked up to the podium and angrily grabbed his arm and took him into a cubicle to berate him in a private setting. He then raised his voice and everyone and their dates and spouses could hear. The first question was, "Do you want to be working here tomorrow?" Before John could answer, "If you do not go out there and offer a sincere apology to those people who have proven to be valuable employees, you will not be here tomorrow. You need to tone down your undeserved arrogance and start living up to the person you are in your own mind. You ain't there yet." He issued the apology and went back to the partner and whispered something to him. The partner nodded, and that was the last we saw of the asshole that day. He apparently went back to where he was living. He left Karen at the office. The rest of the promotions and awards were made except for mine. My promotion was made last, and I was asked to say a few words. "Good morning. I know that you don't want a long-winded speech, but remember it is me speaking." That brought some chuckles. I need to thank our research people. They are the ones that helped me choose a strategy for each of my customers that I would not have received without their help. So research when the party is over, lunch is on me at Oasis. Then I walked back to join the party. Another of the partners came up to me and quietly told me that I would get my partnership when the next board meeting occurred. He also asked me to take the young lady that came with John to her home or wherever she needed to go. I went over to the young lady who had not been introduced to the group and introduced myself. After she introduced herself, I explained to her that I was assigned to take her to her home or wherever she needed to go. I also told her with a slightly amusing smile, "That is the most pleasant assignment that I have been given in ages." She giggled. "Maybe not. I could be the Wicked Witch of the East and you just haven't seen that side of me. I doubt that very much, a fairy princess or a genie, but not a witch." That got a full belly laugh. Then she explained that she was John's cousin by marriage and she had been dating John. She added that his words and actions today meant that she would not be dating him again. I took her back to her apartment. When I dropped her off, I laughed and explained that the condo I was leasing was just outside of her complex's fencing. I pointed to the building. She asked me if we could meet away from the office sometime. I said that I would like that and we exchanged phone numbers. I headed back to the office and worked. John came to work the next morning and took his place in his cubicle. My old cubicle was next to his. He looked into the cubicle, probably to insult me again. Something he did with great regularity. He discovered the cubicle empty and thinking I had quit or been fired, he stood by with a whoop and a fist pump only to see the sign painter putting my name on my new office. John was silent for the rest of the day. For that matter, he never gave me another verbal insult. I called Karen and we made a date for the following weekend. We had a great time. And more discussion of her cousin. She told me that John was extremely angry when he called to inquire about how she got home from the party. When she told him that she was done with him and that I had rescued her from being stranded at the party, he ended the call. She went on to say that she hadn't talked to him since that call. We dated for about 6 months and Karen was offered a promotion that she had worked hard for but would require her to move away from the city. We had a goodbye dinner and a wonderful night in her apartment. Breakfast was entertaining and she dragged me back to her apartment for a goodbye session. 2 years later she returned with another promotion. She called me as soon as she arrived in town. We got together to have coffee and catch up. I explained that while I dated several nice ladies, none of them were Karen, and I was not intimate with any of them. Karen said basically the same thing. I told her of my promotion to full partner and of John quitting when the partnership was announced. Karen laughed and said John is and always has been said, a legend in his own mind. Then she added, "Watch your back, Justin. John is not one to take a lost prize to someone else without trying for revenge." We made arrangements for additional dates. We began a courtship dance that lasted 18 months. I asked her to marry me and she agreed. We both decided that we needed to protect our assets. So we had a prenuptial agreement drawn up. It protected each of our premarital assets and provided penalties for adultery and abuse. It also set conditions for custody of any children we might have. The wedding was great and the reception was a fun and happy party. We honeymooned on a Caribbean cruise to the islands of Antigua, St. Kitts, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We had a glorious trip and came home to my wedding present from my bride. It was a home on 80 acres in the little town of Pearson, MI. It was only about 25 minutes from my office in downtown GR and only about 15 minutes from Karen's office in Cedar Springs. I did have the home in my name only and the purchase date was several months before the wedding. I explained to Karen that the home was mine and I had been setting it up for a family to live in as I expected to be a father when she was ready. She loved the place, especially when she saw the 6 horses that were in the corral. She chose a bay gelding as the horse she wanted. Maybe it would be more appropriate to say the bay chose her. He came right up to her when she went to lean on the top rail. I carried her over the threshold and she took one look and started laughing. Every visible room was vacant except for catalog furniture pictures that were blown up to poster size. The kitchen had all new appliances, a card table and 2 folding chairs. The bedroom when we got to it had a king-size mattress and box spring on the floor and 2 tall table lamps. I told her to buy what she wanted to furnish the house. Karen turned to me with a big smile and said, "Nice to see a well-furnished home. You nailed it. This place has all the essentials. I think I can supply us with some luxuries like bedroom, living room and kitchen furniture. Maybe even enough for the extra bedrooms and an in-home office." Then she grabbed my hand and dragged me toward the bed. Clothes flew in all directions and a wonderful fun time was had by all. We had all of the normal ups and downs, the arguments and the make-up sex. Things were great until about 18 months after we married. She started to become distant and unloving. We had a very big argument about nothing. She froze me out in our marriage bed. Then Karen came home from a doctor's visit with a big smile on her face and a big bounce in her step. She proudly announced that we were going to be parents. I asked her how far along the doctor said she was. She said 6 or 8 weeks. I didn't at that time think something was amiss. Afterward I had a moment of clarity. Later that night I asked Karen again how far along she was supposed to be. She again said the doctor said 6 to 8 weeks. I got up and grabbed my clothes for the next day and went into the guest room. Karen obviously forgot the big argument that we had just over 3 months before. She had refused me sex for over 8 weeks. I knew then that something was rotten in Denmark. I was extremely pissed and Karen seemed oblivious except she did ask why I wasn't sleeping next to her. I refused to answer until I had a plan in place. A week later things got even worse. I woke up normally with a major piss hard. Then when I went to piss it felt like my banana was on fire. I had enough STI stories to figure out that I had a dose of the clap. I went to the health department and got tested. It came back positive for gonorrhea and as icing on the cake, chlamydia. I listed all of my recent sexual partners on one line. There was only one name on the list, Karen. I talked to the people at the clinic and asked that they delay for 5 days talking to my wife. That would make it the next Wednesday. It would actually be 8 days when they understood that it was my wife. They agreed. I drove toward home in an awful mood. I stopped at the drugstore for the 3 prescriptions that the doctors at the clinic prescribed. I moved into the guest room again and moved my dresser into it. I took all of my hanging clothes into the guest room closet. Karen came home from work as I was just taking the last of my clothes into the guest room. "Why are you moving your stuff? I thought you were over your snit." "I am over my snit as you call it. I just got back from the doctors. I have an infectious disease. And I don't want to hurt your baby, so until I am not infectious, I will stay away from you," I replied. "Well, is there anything I need to worry about? And what did you mean when you said the baby is mine and not ours? You think about it for a while and you will figure it out in a few days. For now, just stay away from me until I get the all clear," I answered. I started my exit strategy that evening. I decided to leave and I also decided to wait for the divorce for the kid to be born. I knew it wasn't mine. But I had no idea who was the father. Karen will know that. I know she is cheating, but I have a plan to disappear so she can't have me served. I learned a trick in grade school playing hide and seek in the gymnasium. We would sit on the floor in a circle in the middle of the basketball court. The child that was it would go and sit on the piano bench and lean down on the closed keyboard, cover his or her eyes and count. The 5 children who were chosen to hide would hide anywhere they could, but they were not allowed to leave the gym. When my turn to hide, I whispered to 2 of my friends to leave a space between them, to let me sit there. The it girl put her head down and started counting. I ran around in a noisy circle, then turned and tiptoed to my friends and sat down on the floor just like I had never left. It worked several times and it finally was banned because those kids who used it were almost never caught. I had an idea that would allow me to hide in plain sight. It didn't involve a name change. It didn't require surgery. It didn't even require me to leave the area. It took me 3 days to start making my move. I had called in sick for the entire week and the next as soon as I discovered the disease. That Friday morning I packed all of my stuff and went to an extended stay hotel. I contacted and arranged to have my house put on the market with an initial inspection next Thursday. Karen would know that I knew by then. She probably would scream bloody murder and accuse me in absentia of cheating on her. Her one blind spot and an otherwise almost perfect personality was that nothing was ever her fault. She refused to accept the blame for anything. She probably believes her baby was made by me. Cheating would mean she did something wrong. I knew that my leaving would vindicate in her mind that it was me that was wrong. But when the house and property were going on the market, she would understand that whether I was right or wrong, she was without a home and would have to find some place to live. If her sugar daddy or boyfriend or lover or whatever he was to her bought the property, then she could stay. But if the lover was, as I suspected John from our first meeting, he doesn't have the means to buy the place. I was going to hide in plain sight, but I would not be recognizable. I kept up on the properties for sale in the county and in nearby Langston. An Amish family was moving to a bigger farm, and because no one in the Amish community wanted to buy the place, they put it on the open market. It did not have electricity or up-to-date plumbing, but I could have that put in. The price was very cheap for the 92-acre property, and it was only 20 minutes from Pearson. I would not have the property in my name, but it would be in the name of my trust fund. It would be a matter of public record, and Karen knew of the trust fund. The sale of my current house would be handled by an agent, so if Karen or her lover bought it, I would not be there for the close. I sold my partnership back to the brokerage, cashed out my personal bank accounts, and had my stocks assigned to the trust. I had a couple of estate and criminal lawyers check to see that what I was doing was legal and that I could not be compelled to give up assets in my trust. They assured me that while it was mean, it was legal. I had almost $3 million in liquid assets, and the trust had another 5. I could hide out for years. Then I took on the Amish style of dress and facial grooming. In 4 weeks I looked like most of the other men in the community. My car was parked out of sight in the barn, and I had several neighbors leave their horses in my fields. I even bought an Amish black buggy and parked it alongside of the house. I was gone Wednesday. When the health department and the sheriff arrived to give Karen the bad news, she was compelled to list her sexual partners for the last year as the disease was advanced. I had paid a couple of $1,000 to one of the people at the health department to give me her list. At first, she tried to say it was just me, but the diseases were very advanced in her and only had just started in me. She ended up spending a weekend in jail before she gave up 4 names. John Palmer was one. I did not know the other 3. I decided to have them investigated, and it turns out the other 3 were working with Karen. Somehow John was injured when shot in a drive-by shooting and was rendered impotent. That cost me 10 big. Then Gary Masters, Ralph Simmons, and Frank Liddy were each victim of a mugging. For some reason, my name never came up as a suspect. At least I was never interviewed. The house quickly sold, and surprise, my trust was the buyer. Karen had to leave, as the new owners wanted immediate possession and paid her a small premium to buy the furniture that was in the house. She had enough to buy a house in the village or in Grand Rapids. I relished in the appearance of just another Amish farmer. I actually saw Karen drive past several times. I knew she was going to the prenatal clinic in Greenville after the baby was born. I was going to contact my lawyer and have him serve Karen with divorce papers. After thinking it over, I went ahead and started the divorce. The house was rented to an adjunct professor at Ferris State College. He had a 2-year contract and didn't want to live near campus. I planned to move back when the divorce was final and after the professor's lease was up. Karen fought the divorce. I had my lawyer present the names of her lovers and a blood sample to prove I was not the father of her baby. Karen fainted and her lawyer dropped the objections to the divorce. The judge looked at the prenup and awarded Karen $1. The divorce was final about 6 months ago. Karen had a miscarriage and lost the baby. I decided I liked the simple life I was living in Langston. I took over an adjacent farm when it went up for sale and had a newlywed Amish couple move in to work the 2 properties. I sold the Pearson property at a hefty profit to a logging company run by a couple of my Amish neighbors. They logged it for all of the hardwoods and white pine and then subdivided it and sold it off at a profit. I even worked as a general laborer for them occasionally. I never have come face to face with Karen since the divorce, but I have kept track. She must have had an epiphany as she was living like a nun and only leaving the small house she bought for work and to go to the store. She never has visitors that I have found out about. I am sad that she had cheated on me, but I was not lonely as the local Amish community had pushed me on their single non-Amish friends. I have a couple of nice younger ladies that I entertain 1 or 2 weekends a month. They each know of the other as they are spinster sisters. I have invited them to move in with me. I am anxiously waiting for their answer. Life goes on. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.